What if one small act of kindness could change your entire life? In a world where most people give only to be seen, one young woman gave from the heart. And what happened next will leave you speechless. Welcome back to African Tales by Mahi, where we bring you powerful African stories filled with deep lessons and unforgettable moments. Today's story follows Esther, a young village woman with a heart of gold, who had no idea that feeding a poor man from her little shop would turn her world upside down. This is not just a tale, it's a life lesson. So grab your seat and let's dive into the story of how kindness made Esther a queen. In the crowded streets of Lagos, where everyone seemed too busy to care, a woman named Esther ran a small food stall. It wasn't much, just a wooden table with 2 benches and a pot of jollof rice she sold by the plate. She made enough to survive, but not more. Life was hard, but she never lost her smile. Every day, a quiet old man would sit beside her stall. He was dirty, dressed in rags, and always sat silently with a tired look in his eyes. Most people ignored him. Some mocked him. Children threw stones at him. But Esther didn't. She noticed how he always sat in the same place, never begging, never talking. He just watched. One day, as she was serving a customer, she noticed the old man shivering. The day was cold, and he had no jacket. Without thinking, she walked over and handed him a hot plate of rice. "Eat, Papa," she said gently. "It's from my heart." The man looked at her, surprised. He hadn't spoken a word in days, but now his lips trembled. "Thank you," he whispered, his eyes wet. Esther smiled and walked back to her stall. From that day on, she made it a habit. Every afternoon, no matter how many customers she had or how little food was left, she always saved a plate for him. Sometimes it was just rice and sauce, other times a piece of meat. She never missed a day. The old man, whom she began to call Papa J, never asked for anything, but he always received. People laughed at her. "You're feeding a madman," one woman said. "He's useless. That food is wasted." But Esther didn't care. She believed everyone deserved kindness, even if the world had forgotten them. One evening it rained heavily. The street was flooded. Esther packed up her stool and was about to leave when she noticed Papa J still sitting there, soaked to the skin. She ran to him with an umbrella and tried to help him up. "Come," she said, "let me find you a dry place." He looked at her with deep, grateful eyes. "You have a good heart," he said. She smiled through the rain. "Let's go, Papa." The next morning, when Esther arrived at her stall, Papa J was gone. She looked around for days, but he didn't come back. Her heart ached. She missed him more than she expected. People asked, "Where's your friend?" She just shook her head. "I don't know." Weeks passed. Then one morning, a black car stopped in front of her stall. A man in a suit stepped out and handed her a letter. "Are you Miss Esther?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "You've been invited to the Royal Pearl Hotel for a private meeting," he said. "All expenses paid." Esther was confused. "Why?" she asked. "I don't know, Mom. I was told to bring you." She looked at the letter again. The paper was thick, the handwriting fine. It felt unreal, but something in her heart told her to go. She wore her best dress, a simple yellow gown, and followed the man to the car. The hotel was like nothing she had ever seen. Gold chandeliers, marble floors, polite staff in black suits. They led her to a private elevator that took her to the top floor. The man beside her smiled. "Are you ready?" he asked. She nodded nervously. He pointed to a door. "Someone is waiting for you." "Someone is waiting inside." Esther's heart began to beat faster. She glanced at the door, then back at the man. "Can I go in now?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, just go in. You're safe." Taking a deep breath, Esther pushed the door open. Her eyes were immediately drawn to a man sitting in a wheelchair in the middle of the room. She froze. Her mouth opened slightly, and her hands began to shake. "Papa J," she whispered, placing a hand over her chest. But the man in front of her didn't look like the poor old man who once sat beside her stool. His hair was neatly cut, His face was fresh. He wore a crisp white shirt with gold buttons and a shiny wristwatch. The wheelchair was different, polished and modern. He didn't look weak or tired. He looked calm, powerful. He gave her a soft smile. "Esther," he said gently, "come in." She couldn't move at first. Her heart pounded. "Papa J, is this really you?" He looked straight into her eyes. "Yes, Esther, it's me." He pointed at the chair across from him. "Please, sit." She walked over slowly as if in a dream and sat down. "My name is not Papa J," he said calmly. Esther blinked. "It's not." He shook his head. "My real name is Chief George. I am a billionaire." Esther stared at him, stunned. "A billionaire?" she echoed. Chief George nodded. "Yes, I own many companies. I've built houses, schools, and hospitals. I've made a lot of money over the years." Still confused, Esther asked, "Then why did you pretend to be poor?" He gave a small smile, though his eyes turned serious. "Because I was tired of people helping only when it's convenient or when others are watching. I wanted to see who had a truly kind heart, someone who helps simply because it's the right thing to do." Esther's eyes filled with tears. "You gave me food," he continued, "with joy. You never mocked me. You never asked for anything. You didn't walk away." He paused, his eyes warm. "That is why you're here. Every year, I select 10 people who show true kindness, and I help them become millionaires, because people like you can help others too." Esther sat in stunned silence, still processing his words. Then, something even more shocking happened. Chief George placed both hands on the arms of his wheelchair, and, slowly, he stood up. Her eyes widened, her mouth dropped open. You can walk?" "Yes," he said softly. She leaned back in disbelief. "Then why the wheelchair? Why pretend all this time?" He looked directly at her. "Because I wanted to know who would still care when I looked broken. I needed to find people with true hearts." Tears streamed down Esther's cheeks. "I didn't help you because I wanted anything," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't know you were rich. I just felt it was the right thing to do." Chief George smiled and walked closer. "That's exactly why I chose you." He paused, then said, "Esther, follow me. There's something I want to show you." She looked up, surprised. "A place?" "Yes," he nodded. "It's part of your reward. You have a good heart, and people like you deserve good things." Still in disbelief, Esther stood and followed him. Outside the room, 2 men in black suits were already waiting. They nodded respectfully and followed behind as Chief George led her down a quiet hallway. Everything felt surreal. When they stepped outside, Esther gasped. 5 black SUVs were lined up in the car park, shiny like mirrors. Tall men in suits stood beside each one. Chief George walked to the first SUV and a guard opened the door for him. He looked back at Esther and smiled. "Come in." She hesitated, then stepped into the car. As the doors closed, the entire convoy rolled out of the hotel gate, moving like something out of a movie. Esther sat silently, her heart pounding. Where were they going? What was he going to show her? As the city passed by, her mind raced with questions. After about 30 minutes, the SUVs turned onto a quiet, clean road. The buildings here were modern and beautiful. Glass walls, fresh paint, shining signboards. Then the cars stopped. Chief George stepped out, and a guard quickly opened Esther's door. "Come," he said, warmly. She got out and looked ahead. Her eyes widened again. In front of her was a massive, luxurious building. Not just a shop. This was a high-end restaurant, the kind that only the rich could afford. The white marble walls gleamed, and tall glass windows stretched from top to bottom. Gold handles sparkled on the doors. Flowers lined the entrance. Esther stood still, shocked. But what really caught her breath was the sign above the door. Esther's Place, home of sweet meals. She stepped back, staring at the sign again, not believing her eyes. Is this real?" she asked in a shaky voice. Chief George nodded. Yes, it's yours. Mine? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a bunch of keys. Go inside. Esther took the keys with trembling hands and slowly walked to the door. She opened it and immediately gasped. The floor sparkled. The chairs were big, soft, and stylish. The tables looked like glass mixed with gold. Lights on the ceiling sparkled like stars. The air smelled fresh and clean. Behind the counter, she saw a large, professional kitchen. Gas cookers, deep freezers, shiny pots, clean uniforms hanging in a row. She turned back to Chief George, tears running down her face. You did all this for me? He nodded gently. Yes. You fed me with the little you had. Now I want kings and queens to come eat at your table. You will never suffer again. Esther fell to her knees, covered her face, and wept. I don't know what to say, she cried. You don't need to say anything, Chief George replied. Your kindness already spoke for you.